The knock came 3 times. Sharp, impatient, like whoever stood on the other side had never once in their life been told to wait. Mia dropped her crayon and ran for the door before Sofia could stop her. Mia, wait. Too late. The door swung open and Mia froze, her small hand still on the knob, her eyes wide. Sofia rushed out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel, expecting maybe a neighbor, maybe a delivery, maybe nothing at all. It was not nothing. A woman stood on the porch, wrapped in a coat that probably cost more than the apartment itself. Behind her, 2 men in black suits. Still, silent, watching the street like it owed them something. Mia backed away slowly, tugging at Sofia's sleeve. "Sissy," she whispered. "That lady is scary." Sofia stepped forward, pulling Mia gently behind her. "Can I help you?" The woman smiled. Not a warm smile. The kind that made the room feel colder. "You must be Sofia Connor." "Who's asking?" "My name is not important yet." The woman stepped past her, into the apartment, like she owned the floor beneath her feet. "But you will know me soon enough. I am Hunter's son's mother." Sofia's stomach dropped. Hunter's mother. Here. In her apartment. In Seattle. Standing between the couch and the little table where Mia did her homework every evening. "How do you know where I live?" The woman didn't answer. She snapped her fingers, and one of the bodyguards stepped forward carrying a black briefcase. He set it on the table without a word and stepped back into the shadows near the door. "Open it." Sofia didn't move. "Open it," the woman repeated, softer this time, but somehow more dangerous. "Or I will." Sofia's hands trembled as she unlatched the case. Money. Stacks and stacks of it. Neatly bound. More cash than she had ever seen outside of a movie screen. $2 million, the woman said, watching Sofia's face like she was studying a bug under glass. "Yours. Tonight. All you have to do is disappear. Disappear. From my son's life. Completely. No calls. No letters. No accidental meetings at the grocery store. Nothing." Sofia's throat tightened. "I love him." "Love," the woman repeated, and she almost laughed. "Almost. Love does not run empires. Love does not protect families. Money does that. Power does that." Mia peeked from behind Sofia's leg. "Sissy, who is she?" The woman's eyes flicked toward Mia. Just for a second, but it was enough. "You have a paralyzed mother in the next room, don't you? And a little sister who just started 2nd grade. Sofia's blood turned to ice. "How do you?" "I know everything about you, Miss Connor. I know your mother's medication schedule. I know which school Mia attends and what time she walks home. I know the bus route you take to work every single morning at 6:45. The room went silent. Even the bodyguards seemed to hold still. "If you refuse this money," the woman continued, voice never rising, never breaking, "I cannot promise your family's safety. Accidents happen, especially to people who make enemies of families they don't understand." Sofia's hands curled into fists at her sides. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." The woman glanced at the briefcase. "Take the money. Vanish. Your mother gets the surgery she needs. Your sister gets the life she deserves. Or refuse and lose everything anyway, just without the $2 million to soften the fall." Somewhere down the hall, Sofia's mother called out weakly, asking who was at the door. Mia's small fingers gripped Sofia's shirt tighter. And in that moment, Sofia understood something horrible. She wasn't just fighting for her own heart anymore. She was fighting for 2 people who depended on her for everything. She looked at the briefcase. Then at Mia. Then, finally, at the woman standing in her living room, like she'd already won. Because she had. "Fine," Sofia whispered, and something inside her cracked as she said it. "I'll disappear." The woman's lips curled into something close to satisfaction. "Smart girl." She turned toward the door, bodyguards falling into step behind her like shadows. But before she left, she paused, hand on the doorframe. "For what it's worth," she said, not even bothering to turn around, "you were never going to be enough for my son. Poor girls like you never are." The door closed. Soft. Final. Sofia stood there for a long moment, staring at the briefcase full of money that would fix everything and destroy everything all at once. Mia tugged her sleeve again. "Sissy? Why are you crying?" Sofia hadn't even realized she was. What none of them knew, what Sofia could never have guessed standing there with tears sliding down her face, was that Hunter's mother hadn't come to separate them out of hatred alone. She had already chosen Hunter's next bride, the daughter of another Korean mafia empire, An alliance that would double her fortune, double her armies, double her grip on an underworld that answered to no one but people like her. Sofia was never really the enemy. She was just an obstacle, one that had just been removed. And somewhere across the city, Hunter Sung had no idea that the woman he loved was about to vanish from his life completely, the very same night his own mother had signed away his future without asking him a single question. If this hit you in the chest already, drop a comment telling me who you're rooting for, and hit that like button so more people find this story. Seriously, it helps more than you know. The man feared across the underworld couldn't find the only woman who mattered to him. Hunter Sung stood in the middle of an empty apartment. No furniture. No sound, just dust settling where a life used to be. Sofia. His voice cracked against the bare walls. Nothing answered back. He checked every room twice. The closet. Under the sink. Like maybe she was hiding, playing some cruel joke that would end with her laughing at his panic. But there was no joke. Just silence. Just absence. Just a woman who had existed in his world completely and now didn't. He called her number. Disconnected. He drove to the diner where she worked double shifts to help her mother's medical bills. The manager barely looked up from the register. She quit. Weeks ago. No notice, no goodbye. Just gone. Where did she go? If I knew that kid, I'd be selling the information, not giving it away for free. Hunter went to the school Mia attended. He stood outside the gate like a stranger, because that's exactly what he'd become. A teacher finally told him, hesitant, careful with her words, that the family had withdrawn Mia's enrollment. No forwarding address. No explanation. 9 months. That's how long Hunter searched. He hired investigators. Paid them enough money to make most men retire early. Still nothing. Sofia Connor had vanished like smoke through a closed fist, and no amount of money or fear or desperation could bring her back. His mother watched all of it happen. Quietly. Patiently. Like a spider that had already caught its fly and was simply waiting for him to stop struggling. "I told you," she said one evening, sipping tea in the mansion's sitting room while Hunter paced in front of the fireplace. Poor girls chase money, Hunter. Not love. She probably found someone with deeper pockets. She wasn't like that. His jaw tightened. "You don't know her. I know women like her." His mother set down her cup with a soft, deliberate click. They smile. They cry pretty tears. And the moment life gets difficult, they run. Hunter said nothing. Maybe, probably, his mother was right. Maybe love really wasn't enough against everything the world could throw at a person. Months passed like that. Hunter stopped searching, not because he wanted to, but because there was nothing left to search. His mother, sensing an opening, began inviting a very particular guest to dinner. Her name was Grace Yoonbaek, daughter of one of the wealthiest Korean families on the West Coast. Beautiful, in the way marble statues are beautiful. Cold, polished, untouchable. "You'll like her," his mother insisted during their 4th dinner together. "Give it time." Grace didn't wait for time. She made her opinions known immediately and loudly. "This wine is embarrassing," she announced to the waiter at their first dinner alone, not even bothering to lower her voice. "Bring the bottle from the private reserve. Surely even this restaurant has one." The waiter's ears turned red. He nodded and hurried off. "You didn't have to embarrass him," Hunter said quietly. Grace waved a hand like she was swatting a fly. "He's paid to be embarrassed. That's his job." She studied Hunter over the rim of her glass. "You're softer than the stories say," Hunter sung. "I expected someone more intimidating." "Is that a complaint?" "An observation." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "My family has 3 times the assets yours does. I could buy this restaurant and fire that waiter myself if I wanted to." Hunter's stomach turned, though he kept his face still. Nothing like Sofia. Sofia, who used to slip extra fries to the homeless man outside her diner, even when her manager scolded her for it. Sofia, who cried during sappy commercials and pretended she didn't. Sofia, who never once made Hunter feel small. But Sofia was gone. And gone, apparently, meant forever. Marriage, his mother said one morning over breakfast, not even looking up from her newspaper, should be discussed soon. The Yoonbaek family is eager. Hunter set down his fork. "We've been on 4 dates, mother." "For is plenty. Love isn't a requirement, Hunter. Compatibility is. Power is." She finally looked up, her eyes sharp. "Take her somewhere nice. Hawaii, perhaps. Somewhere unforgettable." "Fine," Hunter said finally, the word tasting like ash. "Hawaii." Grace, when told, seemed almost bored by the news. Finally, I was beginning to think you'd never take this seriously. The night before the flight, Hunter stood in his closet staring at 2 suitcases like they belonged to someone else's life. His assistant, a sharp young man named Desmond Ashworth, knocked twice before letting himself in. "Boss. Car's downstairs in 20. I heard you the first time." Hunter didn't turn around. Desmond lingered anyway. He'd worked for Hunter 3 years now. Long enough to notice things most people missed. "You don't have to go, you know. There's always some excuse. My mother would see through all of it in about 4 seconds." "Probably. But still." Desmond shrugged. "Wouldn't hurt to ask why you're dragging your feet." "You know why." Desmond's expression softened just barely. "Sofia." Hunter said nothing. He didn't need to. "It's been 9 months, boss. I'm aware. Some people don't come back. Probably it's time to—" "Don't." Hunter's voice was quiet, but sharp enough to end the conversation. "Just don't finish that sentence." Alone again, Hunter zipped the suitcase shut and allowed himself one small, useless thought, that somewhere out there, Sofia might be looking at the same moon he was about to fly under. It didn't change anything, but the thought stayed with him anyway, stubborn as a splinter that refused to work its way out. Grace, for her part, spent the flight scrolling through hotel suites on her phone. "This one has a private infinity pool. Obviously we're staying there." "Obviously," Hunter echoed, though his mind was somewhere over the ocean. "You're not even looking." "I'm tired." "You're always tired lately." Grace studied him. "My father says a man's mood before marriage tells you everything about the marriage itself. Are you trying to tell me something?" Hunter sung. "I'm trying to sleep," he said, closing his eyes. Grace huffed and returned to her phone, unbothered. Back in Oregon, Sofia's days folded into each other with a kind of quiet sameness she had learned, slowly, to be grateful for. No sudden knocks. No black suitcases. No strangers with cold smiles standing in her doorway. She worked mornings at a small bakery 2 streets over, kneading dough before sunrise while her mother slept and Mia dreamed whatever dreams 7-year-olds dreamed. The bakery owner, an older woman named Odessa Marchetti, had never once asked about Sofia's past. She simply handed her an apron on the first day and said, "Everybody here's running from something, baby. Question is whether you're going to let it catch you." "You've got flour on your nose," Odessa told her one morning, not unkindly. Sofia wiped at her face with the back of her wrist. "Better than what used to be on my hands." Odessa raised an eyebrow but didn't push. Here, kindness was just kindness. Plain. Uncomplicated. Sofia wasn't sure she trusted it yet, but she was learning too. At home that evening, her mother sat in her wheelchair by the window, watching the last light fade over the neighbor's fence. "You've been quiet again," her mother said, not turning from the window. "Just tired, Mom." Tired doesn't usually look like that, Sofia. That look on your face, that's something else." "It's nothing." Sofia Marie Connor. Her mother turned the wheelchair to face her fully. "I may not be able to walk anymore, but I can still tell when my own daughter is carrying something heavy." Sofia's hands stilled over the laundry she didn't need to fold. "I gave up asking questions because I trust you," her mother continued, softer now. "But trust doesn't mean I don't worry, baby. Whatever it is, whoever it is, I hope you know you don't have to carry it alone forever." Sofia swallowed hard, blinking back the sting building behind her eyes. "I know, Mom." She didn't say anything else. Some secrets, she decided long ago, were hers alone to carry. Heavy or not. 2 states away, in a hotel suite overlooking a beach he wasn't even seeing, Hunter stood on the balcony long after Grace had gone to sleep. The ocean stretched out dark and endless below him. He thought about Sofia's laugh. The way she used to burn toast on purpose because she liked the smell more than the taste. Small things. Things that shouldn't have mattered this much, 9 months later. "Where did you go?" he whispered to the wind, not really expecting an answer. Somewhere, 400 miles north, a woman he hadn't stopped loving was folding laundry that didn't need folding, thinking of him too. Neither of them could have guessed how soon that distance was about to disappear completely. If you're already stressed for both of them, comment Team Sofia or Team Hunter, and let's see who wins this thread. Don't forget to like this video. It genuinely helps this story reach more people like you. The ghost Hunter sung had spent 9 months grieving suddenly appeared, pushing a wheelchair across the street. Hunter froze mid-step outside a small shop selling shaved ice, the afternoon sun hot against his neck, Grace's voice trailing somewhere behind him about a bracelet she wanted to look at. None of it registered anymore. Not the heat. Not Grace. Not the tourists weaving around him like he was a rock in a river. Because across the street, pushing a wheelchair with careful, practiced hands, was a woman who looked exactly like Sofia Connor. Same walk. Same way she tucked her hair behind her ear when the wind picked up. Same small, worried crease between her eyebrows that only ever appeared when she was thinking too hard about something. Sofia. His voice came out rough. Barely a whisper, swallowed almost immediately by the noise of the street, car horns, laughter, someone's radio playing too loud from an open window. The woman didn't hear him. Sofia. This time the shout carried. And this time she froze. For one heartbeat, she turned. Their eyes met across 2 lanes of slow-moving traffic, and Hunter felt something inside his chest crack wide open, 9 months of grief and denial rushing back into a single unbearable second. It was her. It was really her. Then something shifted behind her eyes. Recognition, quickly replaced by panic. She turned the wheelchair sharply, mumbling something to the older woman seated in it, and pushed forward fast, faster, weaving into the crowd like she'd rehearsed disappearing 100 times before. Sofia, wait. Hunter didn't think. He ran. Cars honked as he cut across the street without looking, ignoring Grace's confused shout behind him. He shoved past a group of tourists taking photos, past a food cart, past a street performer strumming something slow on a ukulele. His eyes stayed locked on the back of her head, the familiar sway of her ponytail, the wheelchair's wheels clicking rhythmically against the pavement. Sofia. She didn't stop. If anything, she moved faster, ducking into a crowded market entrance where dozens of shoppers pressed together under strings of paper lanterns. Hunter pushed through after her, searching. Left. Right. A flash of familiar color disappearing behind a stall, selling fresh fruit. He chased it, hard hammering, only to find a stranger. Wrong face. Wrong woman. He spun in a slow circle, breathing hard, scanning every direction. Gone. She was gone. Like she'd never been there at all. Sir. A vendor eyed him with concern. You all right? Hunter didn't answer. He just stood there, chest heaving, searching a sea of unfamiliar faces for the one that had haunted him for 9 straight months. Grace caught up a full minute later, heels clicking against the pavement, face twisted somewhere between confusion and irritation. What in the world was that? You just ran off in the middle of the street like a crazy person. I saw someone. Who? Hunter hesitated. Saying her name out loud felt like admitting to a crime. Nobody. I thought I saw someone I used to know. Grace studied him for a long moment, arms crossed, clearly unconvinced. You've been off all week, Hunter. Ever since we landed. What's going on with you? Nothing. He rubbed a hand over his face, suddenly exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with the heat. Let's just go back to the hotel. Grace didn't move right away. She stood there a moment longer, studying him the way a jeweler studies a stone for cracks. You know, she said slowly, my father always told me never to marry a man who looks at ghosts more than he looks at me. That's not what happened. Isn't it? She turned and started walking, not waiting to see if he followed. Come on. I've lost my appetite for shaved ice anyway. The walk back to the hotel felt longer than it should have. Hunter kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting, half hoping to see the wheelchair again, the gray scarf, the ponytail. Nothing. Just tourists and traffic, and a city that had swallowed her whole without so much as a trace. That night, alone on the balcony while Grace slept inside, Hunter called his therapist, a quiet, measured woman named Dr. Priyanka Voss who'd been treating him since the 3rd month of searching for Sofia, back when the sleeplessness had gotten bad enough that even his mother noticed. I saw her, he said the moment she picked up. Today. On the street. I'm sure of it. There was a pause on the line, careful and clinical. Hunter, we've talked about this. Grief can create very convincing images, especially unresolved grief. Your mind is looking for closure it never got. This wasn't my mind playing tricks. This was real. I believe that it felt real, Dr. Voss said gently. That doesn't mean it was. I chased her. I saw her face. And did you touch her? Speak to her directly? Confirm it was truly her, and not someone who simply resembled her. Hunter opened his mouth, then closed it again. No, he hadn't. Not really. Just a shout across traffic. A flash of a face before she turned and ran. You wanted this so badly for so long, Dr. Voss continued, that your mind may have finally given you what it thought you needed. That doesn't make you crazy, Hunter. It makes you human. Grief does strange things to even the strongest minds. Hunter closed his eyes, gripping the balcony railing. Maybe she was right. Maybe, probably, his mind really had conjured up exactly what it wanted to see. A woman who looked like Sofia, moved like Sofia, vanished into a crowd exactly the way Sofia would have if she were real and terrified and running from him for reasons he still didn't understand. But still, something in his gut refused to let it go. "Get some rest," Dr. Voss said before hanging up. "And Hunter? If this happens again, if you see her again, maybe consider the possibility that closure doesn't always look the way we expect it to." He didn't sleep that night, or the next. By the third night, he'd started walking. Not with any real destination, just wandering the streets near the hotel long after Grace had gone to bed, scanning every face that passed beneath the streetlights, hoping, uselessly, for a repeat of something his own doctor had told him wasn't real. He never told his mother about what he'd seen. He knew exactly what she'd say. That the stress of the wedding planning was getting to him. That perhaps a mild sedative before bed would help settle his nerves. That Sofia Connor, wherever she was, had made her choice long ago and had no business haunting a man who was about to build an empire with someone else. He didn't believe that. He'd never fully believed it. But 3 nights of walking empty streets alone had started to wear him down in ways he didn't like admitting. 2 states away, though not really, because this whole time she'd been closer than he ever imagined. Sofia sat on the edge of her rented apartment's bed, hands shaking, staring at nothing. She'd moved her family again 2 months after leaving the mainland. A specialist in Honolulu had finally agreed to perform the surgery that might give her mother back the use of her legs. It cost nearly half of what remained in that briefcase money, but Sofia hadn't hesitated for a single second. Some sacrifices weren't really sacrifices at all. They were just what love looked like when it had nowhere else to go. She hadn't expected Hunter. Not here. Not ever, if she was being honest with herself. This island was supposed to be safe. Anonymous. Far enough from Seattle that no one from that world would ever think to look. And yet there he'd been, standing across the street like 9 months hadn't passed at all. "Sissy." Mia's small voice broke through the quiet. She stood in the doorway, still in her school uniform, backpack hanging off one shoulder. "Why do you look like that?" "Like what, baby?" "Like you saw a ghost." Sofia forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Just tired. Go wash up for dinner." Mia lingered a moment longer, studying her with the same worried crease Sofia herself carried, before finally shuffling off toward the bathroom. Sofia pressed both hands over her face and allowed herself exactly 30 seconds to fall apart. 30 seconds of shaking shoulders and silent tears. Then she wiped her face, straightened her spine, and went to make dinner like nothing at all had happened. Because nothing could have happened. Not really. She'd run. He hadn't followed far enough to catch her. Surely that was the end of it. She told herself that for 3 straight days, and for 3 straight days, she almost believed it. Her mother noticed the change immediately, the way mothers always seem to. "You've barely eaten," she said one evening, watching Sofia push rice around her plate without actually lifting the fork to her mouth. "Not hungry, Mom." "You've said that 3 nights in a row now." Sofia forced a small laugh that sounded hollow, even to her own ears. "Guess I'm just off my appetite lately." Her mother didn't push, not directly, but the concern stayed etched into her face for the rest of the evening, following Sofia around the small apartment like a shadow she couldn't quite outrun. Mia, for her part, seemed to sense something was wrong too, growing quieter than usual, sneaking glances at Sofia over her homework like she was trying to solve a puzzle nobody would explain to her. On the second night, Sofia dreamed of the briefcase again. The same dream that had haunted her on and off for 9 months. Hunter's mother standing in the doorway, the cold smile, the threat wrapped in politeness. Except this time, in the dream, the woman's face kept shifting, morphing into Hunter's face, then Grace's face, though Sofia had never actually seen Grace and had no idea, really, what she looked like. Just a faceless woman with expensive clothes and a voice dripping with quiet cruelty. She woke up before dawn, heart racing, and lay there in the dark listening to her mother's steady breathing through the thin apartment wall, grateful, at least, that some things hadn't changed. Her family was still safe, still together. Whatever Hunter's sudden appearance meant, it hadn't cost her that. Not yet. On the 4th day, Sofia's mother had a follow-up appointment at the clinic downtown, a squat building tucked between a coffee shop and a jewelry store, run by a soft-spoken surgeon named Dr. Benaz Touré, who had somehow, impossibly, given Sofia real hope for the first time in almost a year. "Everything looks good," Dr. Ture said, reviewing charts while Sofia's mother sat quietly in her wheelchair. The surgery date is confirmed for next month. Barring complications, we're optimistic. Optimistic, Sofia's mother repeated, testing the word like it might dissolve if she said it wrong. That's more than we've had in 3 years. Sofia squeezed her mother's shoulder, throat tight. We're going to get you walking again, Mom. I promise. Dr. Ture reviewed a few more details, walking them through recovery timelines, physical therapy schedules, what to expect in the weeks following surgery. Sofia listened carefully, taking notes on her phone, trying to focus on facts and logistics instead of the anxious flutter still sitting low in her stomach ever since that afternoon on the street. After the appointment, they made their way back to the car, Sofia pushing the wheelchair carefully over the uneven sidewalk. Mia trailed behind, humming some tune she'd picked up from school, blissfully unaware of the storm quietly brewing around her family. It wasn't until they were halfway home that Sofia realized her scarf, the soft gray one Mia had picked out for her birthday 2 years ago, the one she never left anywhere, was missing. I must have left it at the office, she muttered, checking her bag twice just to be sure. Go back and get it, her mother said. I'll wait here with Mia in the car. Sofia hesitated. Something in her gut told her to just let the scarf go. Buy a new one. Forget it entirely. But it was the only thing she had left from that particular birthday, the last one before everything fell apart, and something stubborn in her refused to simply abandon it. I'll be quick, she promised, already walking back toward the clinic. What she didn't know, what she had no way of knowing, was that the clinic sat directly beside a luxury hotel with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire street below. And in a suite on the 4th floor, a man who hadn't slept properly in 4 days happened to be standing at exactly that window, staring blankly at nothing, when a familiar figure walked directly into view. Hunter's entire body went still. There she was. Not a hallucination. Not grief playing tricks. Sofia Connor in full daylight, walking with the same purposeful stride he'd memorized years ago, disappearing through the clinic's glass doors like she belonged there. Like this whole city had been hiding her from him this entire time. Grace. His voice came out flat, distant. She looked up from her magazine, annoyed at the interruption. What now? I have to go. Go where? We have lunch reservations in 20 minutes. Hunter was already moving, grabbing his jacket off the back of a chair, mind racing faster than his feet could keep up with. Hunter. Grace's voice sharpened, rising with each word. Where do you think you're going? We are supposed to be discussing wedding plans this afternoon. Do you understand how disrespectful this is? He paused at the door only long enough to glance back at her. Really look at her, maybe for the first time since they'd started this whole arrangement. I'm sorry, he said, and he almost meant it. I have to go. Hunter sung, if you walk out that door. He was already gone, the door clicking shut behind him, Grace's furious voice muffled through the wood, still shouting something about respect and reputation and what his mother would say. None of it mattered anymore. Not the wedding. Not his mother's plans. Not the merger that was supposed to make his family untouchable. He took the stairs 2 at a time, heart pounding louder than his footsteps, chasing something he'd convinced himself for 9 straight months could never be real. Inside the clinic, Sofia found her scarf exactly where she'd left it, draped over the arm of a waiting room chair. She grabbed it quickly, wrapping it once around her wrist out of habit, and turned to leave, already thinking about getting back to the car before her mother started to worry. She didn't notice the man standing just outside the glass doors until she'd already pushed her way through them. Sofia. Her whole body went rigid. She knew that voice. Knew it better than her own heartbeat, even after 9 months of trying desperately to forget it. Slowly she turned. Hunter stood there, chest still heaving slightly from the stairs, looking at her like she was something impossible. Something he'd stopped believing could exist outside of memory. You're real, he said quietly, almost to himself. You're actually real. Sofia's mouth went dry. Every excuse, every lie she'd rehearsed in her head for exactly this moment, evaporated the second his eyes met hers. Hunter. 9 months. His voice cracked slightly. 9 months, Sofia. I looked everywhere. I hired people. I went to your job, your apartment, Mia's school. You just vanished. Like none of it mattered. It mattered. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. It mattered more than you know. Then why? There was no anger in his voice, not really. Just raw, exhausted confusion. Why did you leave without a single word? Sofia opened her mouth, then closed it again, glancing nervously toward the parking lot where her mother and Mia were waiting, completely unaware that the past had just caught up with all of them at once. "I can't," she said, finally backing away. "I can't do this right now. Sofia, please. I have to go." Her voice shook, but she forced herself to keep walking, keep moving, every step feeling heavier than the last. "Please, Hunter. Just let me go." He didn't chase her this time. He just stood there, watching her disappear around the corner, torn between everything Dr. Voss had told him about closure and everything his heart was screaming at him to do instead. But he'd seen her now. Really seen her. Spoken to her, even brief as it was. And no amount of therapy or reasoning was going to convince him to simply let that go a second time. Instead of causing a scene, instead of chasing her through the parking lot in front of her family, Hunter did something quieter. He memorized the direction she'd walked. He noted the small details, the faded logo on the grocery bag peeking out of her tote, the bus stop sign half a block down, the general direction of the neighborhood beyond it. It wasn't much, but it was enough of a start. He walked back toward the hotel slowly, mind racing, already forming the beginning of a plan he hadn't fully admitted to himself yet. Grace would be furious. His mother would be furious. None of that mattered anymore, not really, not compared to the fact that Sofia Connor was alive and close and clearly still carrying secrets 9 months hadn't managed to erase. Whatever those secrets were, he intended to find out, no matter what it cost him. Back at the car, Sofia forced her hands steady before she reached for the door handle. Her mother glanced up immediately, the same worried crease from earlier deepening across her forehead. "You were gone longer than I expected," her mother said, studying her daughter's face carefully. "Everything all right?" "Fine." Sofia slid into the driver's seat, tying the gray scarf around her wrist a little tighter than necessary, like the fabric itself might anchor her to something solid. "Long line at the front desk, that's all." Mia, buckled in the back seat, tilted her head. "Sissy, your hands are shaking." "It's cold in here," Sofia said, though the Hawaiian afternoon outside sat well past 80 degrees, and the car's air conditioning wasn't even running yet. Her mother said nothing more, but her eyes lingered a moment longer than Sofia would have liked before she finally turned to look out the window instead. Sofia started the engine, hands gripping the wheel a little too tightly, and pulled out of the parking lot without daring to glance toward the clinic's glass doors one more time. She didn't trust herself not to look for him. Back at the hotel, Grace paced the length of the suite, arms crossed, heels clicking sharply against the marble floor with every turn. "Unbelievable," she muttered mostly to herself, though loud enough that anyone nearby could hear. "Absolutely unbelievable." When Hunter finally returned nearly 2 hours later, she rounded on him immediately. "Where were you?" "I told you. I had something to take care of." "Something?" Grace's laugh came out sharp, humorless. "You ran out of here like the building was on fire, missed our lunch, missed the call with the wedding planner, and now you waltz back in here 2 hours later, and all I get is something." Hunter didn't answer right away. He crossed to the window instead, staring out the same street where, hours earlier, he'd watched a ghost turn into a woman right in front of his eyes. "Hunter." Grace's voice softened, just slightly, though suspicion still colored every word. "Is this about the woman from a street the other day? The one you chased through traffic like a madman?" "Don't." "So it I guess about her." Grace crossed her arms tighter. "Who is she?" "Someone from before." Hunter's jaw tightened. "Someone who doesn't concern you." "Doesn't concern me." Grace's voice climbed half an octave. "We are supposed to be getting married, Hunter. Everything about you concerns me." Hunter turned to face her fully, something in his expression finally settling into something close to certainty, maybe for the first time since they'd boarded that plane together. "Grace, I think we both know this was never really about love. Not for either of us." Grace's mouth opened, then closed. For once, she had nothing sharp, ready to fire back. "I'll figure the rest out," Hunter said quietly. "But I need some time. Alone." He grabbed his jacket off the chair again and walked out onto the balcony, leaving Grace standing in the middle of the suite, arms still crossed, staring after him with an expression that had finally cracked from irritation into something closer to real worry. Miles away in Seattle, Hunter's mother sat at her study, reviewing paperwork for the upcoming merger, when her phone buzzed with a message from one of the men she'd sent along on the trip, quietly instructed to keep an eye on things and report back anything unusual. She read the short message twice, her expression unreadable. Asterisk. Hunter ran off after a woman on the street, chased her through the market, came back agitated, Left again for 2 hours this afternoon without explanation. Asterisk. She set the phone down slowly, fingers drumming once against the polished wood of her desk. No, she murmured to the empty room, more to herself than anyone else. It can't be. She'd made absolutely certain 9 months ago that Sofia Connor understood the terms of her departure. Complete disappearance. No contact. No chance encounters. She'd chosen that particular clinic's neighborhood specifically because it sat far from any of the usual tourist paths, precisely to avoid a coincidence like this one. And yet, she picked the phone back up, thumb hovering over a different contact, one she hadn't needed to use in nearly a year. Whatever was happening on that island, she intended to make absolutely certain it stayed contained, no matter what it cost. Back at the small apartment across town, Sofia tucked Mia into bed a little earlier than usual that night, needing the quiet more than the child did. She sat afterward at the kitchen table with the gray scarf still wrapped around her wrist, replaying the sound of Hunter's voice over and over until it blurred into something almost unbearable. Asterisk, you just vanished. Like none of it mattered, asterisk. She pressed her palms against her eyes, willing the words away. He didn't understand. Couldn't understand, not without knowing everything. The briefcase, the threats the paralyzed mother and small sister his own family had used as leverage against her. Probably it was time he finally did. But not tonight. Tonight, she just needed to breathe and hope, foolishly, that whatever door had just cracked open wouldn't come crashing down on everyone she loved before she found the courage to walk through it herself. Outside, the ocean kept rolling in against the shore, steady and unbothered, indifferent to the quiet storm gathering in 2 separate hotel rooms and 1 small rented apartment across the island. Nobody involved yet understood just how fast that storm was about to move, or how little any of them could do to stop it once it finally broke. Probably it would break gently, or maybe not at all. This is where things really flip, so if you've been holding your breath, drop a fire emoji in the comments, and let's get this video in front of more people who need to see how this one ends. One little girl's hug shattered every lie Hunter had believed for 9 months. Hunter followed Sofia's car at careful distance, keeping enough space between them that she wouldn't notice a second vehicle trailing behind through the winding island roads. He told himself it wasn't stalking. He told himself it was simply making sure she got home safely, that whatever answers he needed could wait until she was ready to give them. He parked 2 houses down and sat there for nearly 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, working up the courage to do something he knew might blow up whatever fragile piece Sofia had built for herself. Finally, he got out of the car and walked to the door. He knocked. Inside, Sofia stood at the stove, stirring dinner, her mind still tangled somewhere between the clinic and the sound of Hunter's voice earlier that day. Mia, baby, can you get that? My hands are full. Mia skipped to the door without hesitation, pulling it open with the easy trust of a child who had never once considered that danger might be waiting on the other side. The moment she saw him, her whole face lit up. Brother Hunter. She threw her small arms around his waist before he could even say a word, hugging him tight, the way she used to nearly every week back when Sofia and Hunter had been inseparable, back before the briefcase, before the disappearing act, before 9 months of silence had stretched between them, like an ocean. We've missed you, Brother Hunter. The knife slipped from Sofia's hand. It clattered against the counter, then the floor, the sound sharp enough to cut through the quiet kitchen like a gunshot. Sofia spun around, heart lodged somewhere in her throat, and found Hunter standing in her doorway with Mia wrapped around his middle, looking at her with an expression that mixed heartbreak and hope in equal, unbearable measure. Mia, Sofia managed, voice trembling. Go to your room, please. But sissy. Now, baby, just for a little bit. Mia's face fell, confused, glancing between the 2 adults like she was trying to solve a puzzle nobody would explain. But she obeyed, shuffling reluctantly down the hallway, throwing one last worried look over her shoulder before disappearing into her room. Sofia's mother wheeled herself into view from the living room, taking in the scene with quiet, careful eyes. Hunter, she said simply, no surprise in her voice at all, like some part of her had always known this day would eventually come. Mrs. Connor. Hunter nodded respectfully, though his eyes never left Sofia. I'm sorry to just show up like this. You shouldn't be here, Sofia said, her voice shaking somewhere between fury and fear. You need to leave. Right now. Sofia, please. Just give me 2 hours. That's all I'm asking. 2 hours won't change anything. Then it'll cost you nothing to give it to me. His voice cracked slightly, exhaustion and desperation bleeding through every word. Please. I've spent 9 months not knowing if you were even alive. 2 hours. That's it. Sofia's mother studied her daughter carefully, something unreadable passing behind her eyes. Sofia, she said gently, let the boy stay. Mom. 2 hours, her mother repeated. You've carried whatever this is alone long enough. Maybe it's time you didn't. Sofia's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of her all at once. She looked between her mother's knowing expression and Hunter's desperate one, and finally, reluctantly, she nodded. 2 hours, she said quietly. Then you leave, and you don't come back unless I say so. Deal. Dinner passed in careful, strained silence, Sofia barely touching her food, while Mia chattered happily about school, completely oblivious to the tension thick enough to choke on. Afterward, while Sofia cleaned up in the kitchen, needing something, anything, to keep her hands busy, Hunter sat on the living room floor playing some card game Mia had insisted on teaching him, the same easy warmth between them that had always made Sofia's chest ache with a complicated mixture of love and fear. You're bad at this game, Brother Hunter, Mia announced, giggling as she laid down another winning hand. I'm out of practice, Hunter said, smiling despite everything weighing on him. It's been a while since I've had someone to play with. Sissy doesn't play games much anymore. Mia shuffled the cards for another round, chattering easily the way children do when they don't yet understand the weight of what they're saying. She's always tired. She works a lot, and she buys Grandma all this expensive medical stuff, like the special wheelchair, and the machine that helps her breathe at night. And now we're going to go to the doctor place again next month for the big surgery. Hunter's hands stilled over the cards. Where does she get the money for all that? He asked carefully, keeping his voice light, casual, though something in his gut had already started tightening. Mia shrugged, the question far too big and boring for a 7-year-old to care about. I dunno. She just always has it. Ever since we moved here. And before that too, when we lived in the other house. From the kitchen doorway, Sofia stood frozen, dish towel clutched tightly in both hands, listening to every single word. Something inside her finally snapped. Mia. Her voice came out sharper than she intended, startling both her sister and Hunter. Go wash up for bed. Now, please. Mia blinked, confused by the sudden shift, but scrambled up obediently, sensing the storm brewing in her sister's voice, even if she didn't understand why. She disappeared down the hallway, without another word. Sofia stood in the kitchen doorway, chest heaving, the dish towel twisted so tight in her hands her knuckles had gone pale. Sofia. What kind of family do you have? The words exploded out of her before she could stop them, 9 months of buried rage finally cracking through every careful wall she'd built. Do you think money solves everything? Do you think you can just show up here, play cards with my little sister, and pretend like nothing happened? Hunter rose slowly from the floor, hands raised slightly, like he was approaching something wounded and unpredictable. Sofia, I don't understand. Of course you don't. A bitter laugh tore out of her, half sob, half fury. Your mother made sure of that, didn't she? Made sure you'd never know exactly what she did. What are you talking about? My mother. $2 million. Sofia's voice shook violently now, tears finally spilling over despite every effort to hold them back. That's what she brought to my apartment 9 months ago. A briefcase full of cash and a threat wrapped in a smile. Disappear from your life forever, or watch something terrible happen to my paralyzed mother and my 7-year-old sister. Hunter went completely still, color draining from his face. She said you'd already been promised to someone else, Sofia continued, the words tumbling out now, like a dam finally breaking after 9 months of pressure. Some wealthy Korean family. A merger. She said Mia's school, my job, my mother's medication schedule. She knew everything, Hunter. She made it very clear what would happen if I refused. That's not, Hunter's voice came out hoarse, disbelieving. That's not possible. My mother wouldn't. She would. Sofia's eyes blazed through the tears. She did. I took the money because I had no choice. Because it meant surgery for my mother and safety for my sister. Because I loved you enough to disappear, so neither of them would ever get hurt because of me. The silence that followed stretched long and heavy, broken only by the quiet hum of the refrigerator and Sofia's ragged breathing. Hunter finally moved, closing the distance between them slowly, carefully, like he was approaching something fragile enough to shatter with the wrong step. When Sofia didn't pull away, he reached out and gently took both her trembling hands in his. I love you even more when you're angry, he said softly, and something in his voice cracked with 9 months of grief, finally finding somewhere to land. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything. Hunter, you don't understand what she's capable of. I understand perfectly now. His jaw tightened, something cold and determined settling behind his eyes. And I promise you, Sofia, this ends tonight. Sofia's mother watched the exchange from her wheelchair near the hallway, hands folded quietly in her lap, saying nothing until Hunter finally stepped back to give Sofia room to breathe. Only then did she speak, voice gentle but firm. Sofia, look at me. Sofia turned, chest still heaving, eyes red-rimmed and raw. You carried this alone for 9 months, her mother said. I watched you shrink a little more every single day, and I never understood why. Not until just now. Baby, you didn't have to protect me from this. I didn't have a choice, Mom. She would have hurt you. Hurt Mia. Maybe. Probably. Her mother's voice softened further. But you were never supposed to carry that weight by yourself. That's not what love is supposed to look like, sacrificing everything in silence. Sofia's shoulders finally sagged, 9 months of held tension draining out of her all at once, and for the first time since the knock at that old apartment door, she let herself simply cry without trying to hide it from anyone in the room. Later, once Mia had finally drifted off to sleep and Sofia's mother had retreated to her own room for the night, Hunter and Sofia sat together on the small back porch, the quiet island night settling around them. I should have told you sooner, Sofia admitted, staring out at the dark yard. I didn't know how. Every version I imagined ended with you not believing me, or worse, believing me and getting hurt trying to fix it. I would have believed you. Hunter's voice was quiet, steady. 9 months ago, a year ago, right now, I would have believed you every single time. You didn't know your mother was capable of something like that. No, his jaw tightened. But I should have. I spent my whole life watching her build an empire out of fear and control. I just never imagined she'd use those same tools against the person I loved most. Sofia glanced over at him, studying the exhaustion etched into his face, 9 months of searching finally catching up all at once. What happens now? Now, Hunter said, reaching for her hand, I fix what she broke, however long it takes. Neither of them realized, standing there in that small kitchen with 9 months of secrets finally spilling into the open, that the wealthy woman Hunter had walked out on back at the hotel had quietly installed a tracking application on his phone weeks earlier, shortly after their courtship officially began. Grace had never trusted him completely, not really, and a woman who valued control above almost everything else had made absolutely sure she'd always know exactly where he was. She'd spent the last 2 hours back at the hotel drinking steadily through a bottle of wine meant for their canceled dinner reservation, growing angrier with every passing minute, every unanswered text message, every mile the blinking dot on her phone traveled further from a hotel. By the time the dot finally stopped moving, settling at a small residential address across town, Grace had worked herself into something dangerously close to rage. She called a car. She didn't bother changing out of her dinner dress or fixing her smudged makeup. She simply grabbed her purse, the wine still burning hot in her chest, and set out to confront whoever, had stolen Hunter Sung's attention so completely. The car ride blurred past in a haze of anger and alcohol. By the time she arrived outside the modest house with its careful wheelchair ramp, she was already stumbling slightly, her heels catching against the pavement as she marched up the front walkway. She didn't knock. She pounded. Inside, Sofia and Hunter both froze at the sudden violent sound. Stay here, Hunter said quietly, moving toward the door. He opened it to find Grace swaying slightly on the front step, mascara smudged beneath furious eyes, her voice already climbing before he'd even fully opened the door. So this is where you ran off to. Her words slurred slightly at the edges. A little house with a little ramp and a little family playing house like some kind of fairy tale. Grace, you need to leave. I need to leave. Her laugh came out sharp and ugly. I flew across an ocean for you. I agreed to marry you. And you sneak off to some charity case family, like I don't even exist. Sofia appeared behind Hunter in the doorway, chin lifted despite the fear clearly written across her face. I think it's time you left. Grace's eyes raked over her with open contempt. And who exactly are you? The poor little girlfriend who thought $2 million could buy her a fresh start? Please. Women like you are a dime a dozen, sweetheart. Hunter will get bored of playing hero, eventually. They always do. Something inside Sofia, 9 months of fear, finally burning away completely, hardened into steel. "I'm someone who's not afraid of you," Sofia said, voice steady despite everything. "Not anymore. You and Hunter's mother threatened my family, forced me to disappear, and expected me to just disappear quietly forever. That's over now. You have no idea who you're talking to." "I don't care who I'm talking to." Sofia stepped fully into the doorway, standing beside Hunter now instead of behind him. "Get off my porch, or I'm calling the police." Grace's face twisted with fury, and she launched into a tirade loud enough that lights began flicking on in the neighboring houses, curtains twitching as neighbors peered out to see what the commotion was about. Somewhere down the street, a phone rose to capture the scene, the glowing screen catching Grace's slurred, venomous words as she hurled insults about Sofia's family, her worth, everything 9 months of careful healing had tried to protect Sofia from ever hearing again. Sofia didn't flinch. She stood there, spine straight, chin lifted, letting every ugly word bounce harmlessly off a resolve that had finally completely hardened. By the time the neighbor's video ended, capturing Grace stumbling back toward her car, still shouting threats over her shoulder, the footage had already started spreading. Within hours, it would ripple across every corner of social media, tagged and shared and commented on by thousands of strangers who had no idea just how far the consequences would reach. The confrontation with Grace outside the small house wasn't the end of it, not quite. By morning, the video had already climbed past 100,000 views, comment sections filling with strangers dissecting every slurred word Grace had thrown across that quiet, residential street. Local news picked up the story by midday, blurring faces but not bothering to hide the Yoon Baek name once someone in the comments identified her. Grace's father, a stern, image-obsessed man named Julian Yoon Baek, called an emergency press conference less than 48 hours later, standing stiffly behind a podium while his daughter sat pale and silent in the front row. "My daughter's behavior does not reflect the values of this family," he said, voice clipped and cold. "She will be taking an extended leave from public life while we address this privately." Grace didn't say a single word throughout the entire statement, staring down at her folded hands. The same fury from that night now curdled into something closer to humiliation. Whatever plans her family once had for a merger with the Sungs had evaporated entirely, replaced instead by damage control that would take considerably longer than 9 months to fully repair. That same night, long after Grace's car had disappeared down the street and the neighbors had finally gone back inside, Hunter drove straight to his mother's mansion, jaw set, resolve burning steady in his chest. He found her exactly where he expected, sitting in her study, a cup of tea cooling untouched on the desk beside her. "Hunter." She looked up, something guarded flickering behind her composed expression. "I wasn't expecting you back so soon. We need to talk." "About Grace's little display tonight?" "I've already heard. It's being handled." "About Sofia." His voice came out low, dangerously controlled. "About the briefcase. About the threats you made against her family 9 months ago." His mother's expression didn't change, not really, though something in her posture stiffened almost imperceptibly. "I did what was necessary to protect this family's future. You destroyed my life to protect a merger. I protected an empire." She rose from her chair, meeting his anger with icy calm. "Love is a luxury people like us cannot always afford, Hunter. I did what any mother would do." "No." Hunter's voice cracked, 9 months of grief finally boiling over into something sharper. "You did what a woman obsessed with power would do. You threatened a paralyzed woman and a 7-year-old child to get what you wanted." His mother's mouth pressed into a thin line, but she said nothing. "I'm marrying Sofia Connor," Hunter continued, each word deliberate, unshakable, "whether you approve or not. And if you ever interfere in my life again, if you so much as look in her direction with anything less than respect, you will lose me completely. Do you understand?" The silence stretched long between them, mother and son locked in a standoff 9 months in the making. Finally, something in his mother's expression cracked, just slightly, the icy composure giving way to something almost like exhaustion. "You really love her? That much? More than anything you've ever tried to buy me?" She said nothing else that night, but something in the set of her shoulders, in the way she finally looked away first, told Hunter the war, at least this particular one, was finally over. Back in Seattle, Hunter's mother spent the following weeks in unusual silence, watching from a careful distance as her son moved forward with plans she no longer had any power to stop. She didn't apologize, not directly, not in any way Sofia would have recognized as genuine. But small gestures began appearing regardless. A specialist quietly added to Sofia's mother's medical team, tuition already arranged for Mia's enrollment at a well-regarded school near the mansion, a wing of the house prepared without being asked. Sofia noticed. She didn't trust it completely, not yet, maybe not ever fully. But she recognized in her own careful way that some bridges took longer to rebuild than others, and that actions, however quiet, sometimes spoke louder than any apology ever could. Weeks later, Hunter brought Sofia, her mother, and Mia back to Seattle, settling them into the Sung family mansion under terms his mother, however reluctantly, had finally agreed to honor. The surgery went forward as scheduled, successful beyond even Dr. Tere's optimistic predictions, and slowly, carefully, Sofia's mother began the long process of learning to walk again. Mia adjusted instantly, delighted by her new enormous bedroom, and even more delighted by having Brother Hunter around every single day instead of just on weekends. As for Grace, the viral video from that chaotic night followed her family for months afterward, her father having already publicly scolded her once the damage to their reputation became impossible to ignore, the Yoon-baek name suddenly synonymous with exactly the kind of ugliness they'd spent generations trying to hide behind wealth and polish. Sofia and Hunter married quietly the following spring, a small ceremony held in the mansion's garden rather than the sprawling ballroom Hunter's mother once insisted upon for an entirely different bride. String lights hung low between the trees. Folding chairs, not gold-plated ones, lined a simple aisle. Sofia's mother sat in the front row, upright now, one hand resting on a cane. She was slowly learning to trust more than her wheelchair. Grandma Connor, walking now with only the gentle support of that cane, moved down the aisle on her own 2 feet for the very first time in over 3 years, tears streaming freely down her face as the small crowd of guests rose in quiet, disbelieving applause. Maybe, probably this was what healing actually looked like, not sudden, not perfect, but steady, one careful step at a time. Mia served as flower girl, scattering petals with the same fearless joy she'd once used to fling open a front door to a stranger who would eventually become family, giggling every time a petal landed somewhere it shouldn't. Odessa Marchetti, the bakery owner who'd never once asked questions during those quiet months in hiding, sent a cake 3 tiers taller than anyone requested, along with a note that simply read, "Told you it wouldn't catch you forever, baby." Desmond Ashworth stood beside Hunter as his best man, grinning the entire ceremony like he'd personally orchestrated the whole reunion, which, in his own small way involving one very persistent nudge toward Hawaii, he sort of had. And when Hunter finally slid the ring onto Sofia's finger, voice steady despite 9 months of everything they'd survived to reach this exact moment, he leaned close enough that only she could hear him. "Worth every single day of searching," he whispered. Sofia laughed through fresh tears, the sound light and unguarded in a way it hadn't been in almost a year. "Even the 9 miserable ones. Especially those," he said. "They're the reason I never stopped." And though the road there had been paved with threats and secrets and 9 months of unbearable silence, Sofia finally understood something she'd never quite believed possible back when a briefcase full of money sat open on her kitchen table. Some things, it turned out, really were worth more than $2 million. Love, when it was real, had a way of finding its way home. No matter how far, how fast, or how desperately someone tried to bury it beneath fear and distance and threats dressed up as kindness, it simply refused to stay gone. If you enjoyed the story, simply like and share to like minds because it helps my channel to grow and reach other people who might need it. Thanks, and watch out for more interesting stories.